To help me learn to swim, Dad built a private swimming pool in the backyard. But since I was afraid of water, he never forced me, only allowing me to play with water guns on the shore. After my younger brother was born, he became the new favorite in the family. That day, when my brother slipped at the edge of the pool, I reached out to pull him, but due to my weak strength, both of us fell in together. I desperately held my brother up, but when Dad arrived, he only saw me pressing on my brother's head. His eyes bulged with rage, and he struck my hand viciously with the net pole. "Murderer, you want to drown your brother." He rescued my brother but left me, who couldn't swim, in the deep end, and even removed the ladder. "Just soak in the water to learn your lesson." They hurriedly performed CPR on my brother, and no one looked back at me struggling and bobbing in the water. Amid the agony of water flooding my nasal passages, I was still wondering if they would still love me once I was rescued ashore. My body became very light. I floated up. Looking down, that small body always wearing ill-fitting old t-shirts was now curled up at the bottom of the deep end. The hair spread out like water plants, covering that pale little face. The sensor lights in the yard turned off and on again. The red and blue flashing lights of the ambulance flickered at the villa's entrance, and medical personnel rushed into the house carrying a stretcher. Mom, with disheveled hair, cried as if the sky had fallen, tightly holding my brother's hand. "Baby, don't scare Mom, don't scare Mom." Dad anxiously stood guard nearby, his expression full of worry. They clustered around the stretcher and rushed toward the ambulance, their steps chaotic and hurried. From beginning to end, no one glanced back at the backyard. The ambulance sped away with a wail, taking away the family's hopes and concerns. The villa fell back into a deathly silence. I floated above the pool, watching the water surface gradually return to calm. The ripples dissipated, and the deep blue pool water resembled a huge sapphire, perfectly concealing the evil beneath. From the shore, the water surface was smooth as a mirror, revealing no sign of the dead person hidden below. After my brother was taken away, Dad strode purposefully straight to the backyard. He still clutched the net pole that had broken my hand bone, his face so grim it could drip water. "Little beast, get out here." He stood firm in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, his gaze scanning the entire backyard like a hawk. I floated in front of him, almost touching his nose. I wanted to call out Dad, but no sound came from my throat. He couldn't see me. His gaze skimmed over the calm pool surface, lingering for only half a second before shifting away. No ripples, no splashes. To him, this not only meant I had already come ashore but also that I had fled out of guilt. "Oh, getting bold, huh?" He sneered, slamming the net pole hard onto the ground, the metal rod striking the tiles and sparking. "Just pushed your brother in, and now playing hide and seek with me? Learn to play cat and mouse?" He strode to the storage room door and kicked the panel. "Come out. Don't think hiding inside and playing dead will make me spare you. So young and so vicious, that's your own brother. You actually tried to kill him. You usually seem so honest, but turns out you're an ungrateful wolf." Every word was like a sharp knife stabbing into my corpse. In his heart, I had long been convicted. No trial needed, no evidence required. As long as my brother cried, I was definitely the culprit. The storage room was empty, with only a few startled cockroaches scurrying across. Dad didn't find anyone, and his anger intensified. He turned around, hands on hips, chest heaving violently. His gaze fell back on the pool. This time, he stared at the deep blue water surface, a flash of disgust in his eyes. "Hiding? Fine, let's see how far you can hide." He seemed convinced that I was hiding in some corner of the backyard, peeking through a crack at him, waiting for him to calm down. He strode toward the control panel by the pool. There was a red button there. It was the switch for the electric pool cover. It was a protective cover used to prevent leaves from falling into the water or during winter when the pool was not in use. Made of heavy canvas material, once closed, it could bear the weight of several adults. I didn't understand what he was doing until his finger pressed heavily on that red button. Rumble, the roar of the motor starting was particularly harsh in the quiet night. The reel at the end of the pool began to turn, and that thick, opaque deep blue canvas, like a huge mouth, slowly devoured the water surface bit by bit. No! I screamed silently, desperately trying to grab his hand. Dad, I'm right under the water. If you cover it, no one will ever find me. The canvas rubbed against the rails, producing a teeth-gritting sound. 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters. The originally shimmering water surface was gradually covered by darkness. Dad stood by the switch, his face showing a vengeful satisfaction. Since you like hiding so much, don't come out. To prevent you from coming out to harm others again. Let's see how long you, this scourge, can hide. He thought that by sealing the pool like this, he could prevent me from pushing my brother in again. But he didn't know that he was personally entombing his own daughter in a grave. The motor stopped turning. Click, the lock engaged. Seamless. The entire pool turned into a flat deep blue canvas ground, like a huge coffin. Dad turned and walked toward the floor-to-ceiling window, deliberately deadbolting the glass door to the backyard before entering the house. It was an old-fashioned latch lock, and the sound of locking was crisp and final. Through the glass, he viciously shouted at the empty backyard, at the sealed pool, "No coming inside for dinner tonight. Just stay outside and feed the mosquitoes. Reflect on your black heart. Without my permission, no one is allowed to open the door for you." After saying that, he yanked the curtains closed. The heavy blackout curtains completely blocked the warm indoor lights. The world plunged into darkness. Until the next morning, the glaring sunlight didn't penetrate through the canvas seams. But I heard movement. It was the sound of high heels stepping on the pebble path, urgent and heavy. Click, click, click. Each step felt like it was stomping on my heart. Mom was back. She carried a plastic bag in her hand, containing the clothes my brother wore when he fell into the water yesterday, still damp and not fully dry. She stormed into the living room aggressively, slamming the bag of clothes onto the sofa. "Where is she? Where the hell did she die? Get out here." This roar was full of energy, indicating that my brother was recovering well in the hospital. I floated above the pool cover, watching her rampage through the house like an enraged lioness. "You harmed your brother like that yesterday, and today you're playing dead? These are your brother's clothes, covered in dirty water. Get out here and hand wash them. If you don't wash them clean, don't think about eating." She charged upstairs, kicking open my bedroom door. No one. The quilt was neatly folded, that was my habit, fearing being scolded for being sloppy. She then rushed into the bathroom, study, even rummaging through the closet. Still no one. Mom's face grew increasingly ugly, not out of worry, but rage from being provoked. She returned to the living room, took out her phone, and dialed my number. "Sorry, the user you dialed is powered off." Because my phone was still in my pants pocket, now soaking with me at the bottom of the 2-meter-deep pool. It had long been water-damaged and scrapped. "Oh, very good." Mom laughed in extreme anger, slamming her phone onto the sofa. "Learn to run away from home, huh? Learn to play missing? This is fleeing out of guilt. Feeling guilty." She was convinced I was afraid of being beaten and had hidden at some classmate's house. She didn't think of the worst at all. "Fine, you're not coming back? Let's see how long you can stay tough." Mom's gaze shifted and landed on the cat bed in the balcony corner. There slept an orange kitten, a stray cat I had picked up, named Pumpkin. Usually, I saved my breakfast money to buy cat food for it. It was the only living thing in this house that would act cute toward me. Mom strode over and grabbed Pumpkin by the scruff of its neck. Meow. Pumpkin was hurt and let out a shrill cry, its 4 paws flailing in the air. No. I anxiously wanted to pounce over, to pry open Mom's hand. "That's my cat. Don't touch it." But my hand passed through Mom's body once again. She lifted Pumpkin like a bag of garbage, strode to the entrance, and opened the door. "Since the person isn't coming back, keeping this beast is useless. Just like you, an ungrateful wolf." With a swing of her arm, Pumpkin arced through the air and crashed heavily onto the cement ground outside the door. Meow. The kitten let out a miserable cry and then fell silent. Mom. I knelt on the ground, screaming heartbrokenly at the door. Tears wouldn't flow, only endless despair churning in my chest. How could you be so cruel? That's my cat. Is this to punish me? But I'm already dead. Mom clapped her hands as if she had touched something dirty, her face showing the satisfaction of revenge. I don't believe I can't handle you. She took out her phone and opened the family Facebook. Her fingers quickly tapped the screen, sending a 60-second voice message, followed by a second and third. Her tone was passionate, tearful. Everyone, come judge. This child is utterly lawless now. Yesterday, she pushed her own brother into the water, almost drowning him. If not for the child's dad discovering it early, we'd be sending off a young one as elders. Now, knowing she's caused big trouble, she's playing missing on me. Phone not answering, no sign of her. So young and so ruthless, even daring to harm her own brother, what will she be like grown up? That's a potential murderer. The group chat exploded quickly. Aunts and relatives jumped in to take sides. Oh dear, how did this child turn out like this? She seemed so honest as a kid. You know faces but not hearts. Kids these days mature early, with strong jealousy. Must punish severely. Can't spoil her. If she enters society like this, she'll be a menace. Sister-in-law, don't worry, cut off her allowance, starve her for 2 days, see if she comes back. Mom listened to those agreeing voices, a cold smile curling her lips. She pressed the record button again, viciously saying into the phone, I've already stopped her card. I don't believe the little money she has can last a few days. If she dares come back, I'll break her legs. Such an ungrateful thing doesn't deserve to be our family's child. I floated behind her, watching those vicious words on the screen, like nails pinning my dignity and character to a pillar of shame. So in your hearts, I'm this worthless. I turned away, not wanting to see that twisted face anymore. I floated back to the backyard. The underwater was still peaceful. At least there was only cold, without these piercing noises. Just then, a strange sound came from the pool direction. Gurgle, creak, gurgle. The sound was muffled and strange. It was the pool's automatic circulation system starting up. This system activated daily on schedule to filter impurities in the water. But today, it seemed to encounter trouble. My heart sank. It was my hair. My corpse had soaked at the bottom overnight, drifting with the current, and the hair was sucked into the return inlet. The long strands wrapped around the impeller, clogging the pipes, causing the motor to emit this overburdened roar. This sound was particularly jarring in the quiet backyard. What sound? Dad, who was in the kitchen heating milk for my just-discharged brother, poked his head out. His brows furrowed, face full of impatience. What's wrong with this damn pool now? Never lets anyone have peace. He set down the milk and grumbled as he walked to the backyard. My heart leaped to my throat. Dad. Come quickly. Just open the cover and look. I'm right at the outlet. Dad walked to the control panel, reaching to press the red open button. He wanted to open the cover to check why there was this strange noise. Closer. Even closer. His fingers were only centimeters from the button. My soul trembled, screaming. Press it. Please press it. As long as the cover opens, sunlight can shine into the depths, and you'll know I didn't run away. I didn't flee out of guilt. I'm right here, always here, waiting for you to take me home. Wha? Dad. I want milk. A sharp cry suddenly came from upstairs. It was my brother waking up. The cry was spoiled and domineering, instantly piercing the entire villa. Dad's fingers froze in midair. Just a second of hesitation. He abruptly withdrew his hand, turned, and ran back into the house, his original impatience instantly turning to anxiety and indulgence. Coming, coming. Baby, don't cry, Dad will get you milk right now. This damn machine, I'll get someone to fix it later. He rushed back into the house without looking back, once again forgetting the pool that was sending distress signals. Creak, creak. The motor was still idling, emitting desperate groans. Just like the sound I made in my last gasp underwater. No one paid attention. Dad's figure disappeared around the stair corner. I looked at the once again tightly closed floor-to-ceiling window, at that damned red button. Just a little bit. Really just a little bit. Due to overheat protection, the circulation system clicked and automatically shut down. The backyard fell back into dead silence. Only that deep blue canvas, still like a shroud, tightly covering the water surface, pressing the 10-year-old departed soul beneath it, never to turn over eternally. The afternoon sun was scorching, as if to peel off a layer of skin. I floated below the central air conditioning vent in the living room, watching this family perform the act called harmonious and happy. On the coffee table was freshly cut watermelon, red flesh with black seeds, juicy. My brother nestled on the sofa, watching cartoons while opening his mouth waiting for Mom to feed him. He was like a fledgling waiting to be fed. Mom, with a doting face, used a silver fork to pick the centermost, sweetest piece and fed it into his mouth. Eat slowly, don't choke, my little ancestor. Just then, Dad's phone on the coffee table rang. The screen flashed, "Class teacher Wendy." Dad furrowed his brows, his smile immediately collapsing. He glanced toward my room upstairs, snorted coldly, answered the call, and casually turned on speaker. "Hello, Teacher Wendy, did Leah cause trouble at school again?" Dad preempted, his tone full of impatience. There was a slight pause on the other end, then Teacher Wendy's voice came, "Leah's dad, it's not trouble. Leah didn't come to class today at all. I've waited from morning reading till now, no sign of her, phone not answering, so asking the parents if the child is sick." "Didn't go to class?" Dad and Mom exchanged a glance. I saw a flash of astonishment in Mom's eyes, but immediately, that astonishment turned into even stronger disgust. "Not sick. Perfectly healthy." Mom grabbed the conversation, her voice shrill, "Teacher, don't mind her, this child is spoiled. Yesterday, out of jealousy for her brother, she pushed him into the water, we scolded her a bit, and now she's throwing a tantrum at us." Dad chimed in from the side, his tone contemptuous as if discussing a disobedient dog. "Yes, she ran away from home. This girl is petty, feels wronged, wants to scare us this way. Teacher Wendy, don't worry, she doesn't have much money, after a couple of hungry meals, she'll slink back." Dad chimed in from the side, his tone contemptuous as if discussing a disobedient dog. "Yes, she ran away from home. This girl is petty, feels wronged, wants to scare us this way. Teacher Wendy, don't worry, she doesn't have much money, after a couple of hungry meals, she'll slink back." Ran away from home? Teacher Wendy obviously didn't expect this script, her tone hesitant, but, "It's already afternoon, where could the child go? Though security outside is good now, she's still a child." "Teacher, you're too responsible." Dad interrupted the teacher, lit a cigarette, crossed his legs. "The more you look for her, the more spirited she gets. Just pretend you didn't see, when she returns to school, don't be polite, criticize her harshly. Let her know what rules are. No need to give us face." Teacher Wendy was silent for a while on the other end, facing the parents' toughened righteous over family attitude. As an outsider, it was hard to say more. Then, "Okay. If the child comes back, I still hope for good communication, after all, mental health is important too." All right, thanks teacher." Beep. Call ended. Dad tossed the phone onto the sofa, scoffed, "Drama queen. Even learned to skip class, really thinks she's something." Mom pulled a tissue to wipe my brother's mouth, rolled her eyes. "When she comes back, see if I don't skin her alive. Using such insidious tricks, wanting us to search the world for her? Dream on." I floated in midair, looking at their competent faces, surprisingly without a ripple in my heart. You guessed the beginning right, I indeed didn't go to class. But you guessed the ending wrong. I can't go back. Never can go back. That so-called runaway person was now quietly lying at the bottom of the 2-meter-deep water in the backyard, body already soaked pale, gradually rotting. About half an hour later, the doorbell rang. "Who is it?" "In the middle of the day," Mom grumbled as she went to open the door. As the door opened, a middle-aged man in plain clothes, burly build, stood at the door, carrying a box of imported milk and a Transformers toy. It was Uncle. He was a veteran detective in the city criminal police team, usually busy with work, rarely visiting. "Oh, brother. Why are you here?" Mom's impatience instantly turned to surprise, quickly taking the items. Come in, it's scorching outside." Uncle wiped the sweat from his forehead, his eyes scanning the room. "Heard Leo fell into the water yesterday? I just finished a case and was passing by, came to check." "Is the child okay?" Fine, just a bit scared." Mom welcomed Uncle in, but her mouth didn't stop, immediately starting complaint mode. "You don't know how close it was yesterday. If not for Charles discovering early, Leo would be gone. What family misfortune, how did we get such a ruthless thing like Leo?" Uncle walked to the sofa and patted my brother's head. My brother was immersed in the cartoon, didn't even lift his head, just perfunctorily called Uncle, and continued staring at the TV giggling. Uncle didn't mind, turned his head toward upstairs. "Where's Lea? That child usually seems quite honest, how could she do such a thing? Is there some misunderstanding?" "Misunderstanding my ass." Dad snorted smoke from his nostrils, gnashing his teeth. "I saw with my own eyes her pressing Leo into the water. How could that be fake?" "Brother, don't be fooled by that girl's appearance, she's rotten inside. See, fled out of guilt, even skipped school." Uncle frowned. He watched me grow up. In his impression, I always wore faded school uniforms, quietly sitting in the corner doing homework, smiling at people, never speaking loudly. In contrast, the spoiled brother would throw tantrums at the slightest displeasure, smashing things. "Ran away from home?" Uncle keenly caught the key point. "How long? Did she take money? Phone on?" "Ran last night." Mom said indignantly while cutting fruit. "Phone off. Don't mind her, she won't starve. This kind of child needs discipline, after suffering enough outside, she'll naturally crawl back." Uncle's brows locked tighter. As a veteran detective who dealt with criminals for 20 years, he had an almost instinctive sense. It was too abnormal. A child usually timid, not even daring to speak loudly, really had the guts to calmly plan a runaway after committing attempted murder? "I'll go smoke a cigarette." Uncle didn't argue, just felt the air in the room was stuffy, oppressive. He stood up and familiarly walked to the backyard. "Hey, brother, why go to the backyard, smoke here?" Dad said politely. "Nothing, just get some air." Uncle pushed open the floor-to-ceiling window to the backyard. A wave of heat hit him. It was midsummer, the afternoon backyard like a steamer. Cicadas screamed hoarsely in the trees, annoyingly chaotic. I floated behind Uncle, watching him walk to the poolside. That deep blue canvas still tightly covered the water, like a huge shroud, gleaming eerily in the sunlight. Uncle took out his cigarette pack, tapped out a cigarette and put it in his mouth, about to light it, but suddenly paused. He sniffed. He frowned in confusion, sniffing hard twice more. A faint odor permeated the air. Not floral, not grassy, not the usual pool disinfectant. But a subtle fishy stench. This smell might be hard for ordinary people to detect, masked by the scent of grass and trees. But for Uncle, who frequently entered crime scenes and was accustomed to corpse odors, this smell was too familiar enough to make his back hair stand on end. It was the gas produced by proteins rapidly decaying in high temperature and humidity. A smell bred from death. Uncle's face changed. He forgot to light the cigarette, his gaze scanning the backyard like a hawk. Dead rat? Stray cat? Finally, his gaze fixed on the edge of the pool cover. There, at the junction of canvas and pool wall, was a very thin gap. Around that gap, a dozen green-headed flies gathered. They excitedly rubbed their legs, darting in and out of the gap, emitting nauseating buzz sounds. Flies are nature's sharpest detectives. They only gather where there is rotting flesh. Uncle's heart sank sharply. He quickly walked to the poolside, squatted down. The fishy stench was stronger, drilling straight into his nose through that gap. "Charles!" Uncle suddenly turned back, roaring into the house. This roar carried professional authority and urgency, startling Dad, who was inside enjoying the air conditioning. Dad grumbled as he came out, "What's up, brother? Startling me like that?" Uncle pointed at the pool, face ashen. "Open this cover." Dad was stunned, then impatient. "Why open it? The water's dirty," planning to get someone to change it. "Besides, covering it is for sun protection, to prevent moss." "I said open it." Uncle's voice rose an octave, tone unquestionable. "Now." Dad was intimidated by Uncle's aura but still found it baffling. "No, brother, are you sick? Why open the pool cover in this heat? It's stinky inside." "You know it's stinky too?" Uncle stood up, staring intently into Dad's eyes. "Didn't you smell it? This smell is wrong." "What's wrong? Isn't it just stagnant water stinking?" Dad was still stubborn, but his eyes dodged, mainly unnerved by Uncle's interrogating gaze. "Fine, fine, open it." "Really convinced? Your occupational disease acting up again?" Dad complained as he walked to the control panel. I floated in midair, looking at that red button. My heart pounded wildly at this moment. Finally going to be seen. Dad's finger pressed the button. Rumble, the familiar motor sound started again. The reel turned, the canvas began to slowly retract. The glaring sunlight eagerly penetrated the dark depths. As the canvas rolled up bit by bit, the stench muffled for a day and night exploded instantly. "Ugh, Dad," being close, dry heaved from the smell, covering his nose and retreating. "I said it stinks. You insisted on opening. This water must be bad." Uncle said nothing. He stared intently at the gradually exposed water surface. The water was murky, with a green tint. The canvas rolled over the shallow area. Nothing. Over the middle area. Still nothing. Dad was already impatient. "All right? Seen enough, close it quick, it's killing with the smell. Don't move." Uncle sternly stopped him. The canvas continued to roll back, finally exposing the deepest area. Sunlight poured unreservedly onto the water surface. Amid the shimmering waves, a large shadow floated in the center. It wasn't leaves. Nor garbage. It was a person. A child wearing an ill-fitting old t-shirt, body slightly swollen due to gigantism view. I floated face down like that, limbs spread, like an abandoned rag doll. Black hair spread like water plants behind the head, gently rippling with the waves. Time seemed to freeze at this moment. Dad's hand covering his nose froze in midair, mouth wide open, eyes bulging almost out of sockets. That face always full of disdain and rage toward me was now filled with ultimate terror and disbelief. "Lia?" He squeezed these two words from his throat, voice shaking like leaves in the wind. Uncle's pupils contracted sharply, his detective mental resilience kept him from crying out, but his trembling hands revealed the storm in his heart. He spotted that detail at a glance. The detail enough to break everyone. On the swollen pale back of the corpse's hand, a shocking purple-black bruise stretched across. It was the terrifying color from subcutaneous bleeding after long soaking. It was the mark left from Dad viciously striking with the net pole last night. Irrefutable evidence. "This is what you call running away from home?" Uncle turned his head, eyes bloodshot, voice like a demon crawling from hell. Dad's legs weakened, but he slumped onto the scorching tiles. "No, impossible. Lia. I saw Lia. He babbled incoherently, his finger pointing at the pool trembling wildly. I thought, he probably wanted to say he only removed the ladder, just to teach me a lesson. He didn't intend to kill. Really didn't. But so what? I still died. The air froze. That dead silence was more oppressive than the deepest underwater. Dad's eyes stared fixedly at the water, eyeballs covered in red veins, as if about to split. He wanted to stand. As a father, instinct drove him to jump in, to fish the child out. Even if a corpse couldn't just soak in stinking water. His hands propped on the hot tiles, knees straining. Thud. He only got halfway up, but his legs like bones were moved, soft as noodles, the whole person crashed back to the ground. Looking at that pale swollen face, what flashed in his mind wasn't grief, but my desperate eyes that night, his resolute pressing of the cover button. Ah! He let out an inhuman howl, hands clawing wildly in the air, as if grasping for a lifeline. Save her, brother! Save her! He couldn't move. He was nailed to the shore by his own sins. Just then, the floor-to-ceiling window was pushed open forcefully. What's wrong? Yelling like that, don't disturb Leo. Mom carried a plate of cut watermelon, face still with unwithdrawn impatience. She stepped out 1 foot, high heel click on the ground. Then, she saw. That plate of bright red watermelon smack fell to the ground, juice splashing, like shattered flesh. Mom's pupils dilated sharply, her whole face losing all color in this second, whiter than paper. She opened her mouth wide, throat making gurgle gasping sounds, like being choked. Leah! An extremely shrill scream, as if to lift the villa's roof. The sound was too sharp, too desperate, piercing my soul to tremble. Immediately, her eyes rolled back, whole body stiffly falling backward, thud smashing to the ground, fainting dead away. Chaos. Total chaos. But I only found it laughable. Uncle was the first to react. After all, a detective, accustomed to life and death. Though eyes rimmed red, he didn't slump like Dad, nor faint like Mom. Gritting his teeth, he flung off his plainclothes jacket, didn't even remove shoes, splashed jumped into that pool full of corpse stench and bacteria. Water splashed, hitting Dad's dazed face. Uncle swam to my side, movements gentle as touching fragile porcelain. He lifted my body, that already rigid, stinking body. Leah. Uncle will take you home. This Iron Man, his voice choked. He dragged me, step by step swimming to the shore. I floated in midair, watching this scene. Watching Dad lie like a dead dog by the pool, reaching to pull me, but at the moment his fingertips touched my cold skin, retracting like electrocuted. He feared me. He feared his own daughter. Sirens soon echoed through the entire villa area. Not ambulance, police cars. Uncle reported it. His first thing after ashore was to take out his phone, in an extremely calm, chillingly calm tone, dial the bureau. Homicide. West Suburb Villa area. Victim is my niece. The forensic examiner came, criminal police team 2. Caution tape up, enclosing this once laughter-filled, now haunted backyard airtight. Dad and Mom huddled in the living room sofa corner, like 2 frightened quails. Mom had woken, but dazed, muttering, "Impossible, she ran away, she didn't take money." Forensic Ken was Uncle's colleague, wearing mask and gloves, conducting preliminary autopsy on my corpse by the pool. I stood beside Ken, watching him flip my eyelids, press my chest. Time of death over 48 hours. Ken's voice came through the mask, muffled but clear, that is, the night 2 days ago. 2 days ago. Exactly the night my brother fell in. Exactly the night Dad confidently said I fled out of guilt. Dad's body shuddered sharply, burying his head in his knees. Cause of death clear, drowning asphyxiation. Ken continued, his hand stopping on my right hand. There, the back swollen high, showing horrifying purple-black. This is antemortem injury. Ken frowned, looked up at Uncle, then at Dad huddled inside, suffered blunt force trauma. Bone may have cracks. This level of injury would cause severe hand pain, unable to grasp objects. Uncle stood aside, holding an unlit cigarette. Hearing this, he sharply raised his head, gaze shooting like knives into the house. He strode into the living room, grabbed Dad's collar, lifting him from the sofa. "Charles!" Uncle roared, spittle spraying Dad's face, "Tell me the truth. What exactly happened that night? Dad trembled, eyes dodging. I just disciplined her a bit. I didn't intend. Discipline? Uncle sneered, pointing at the net pole still thrown on the ground outside the window. With that? Huh? Broke her hand, so she couldn't grab the wall, then removed the ladder, watching her drown? Dad broke down crying, snot and tears smearing his face. I thought she came up. I really didn't know. You didn't know? Uncle slammed Dad back onto the sofa. If you had just looked back once. Just once. That's a life. Your daughter. Just then, movement from upstairs. It was my brother. Awakened by the noise below, rubbing eyes, holding that Transformers, came down. Dad, Mom, what's wrong? Why so many people at home? He looked at the house full of police, at his tearful parents, face blank. Mom, as if seeing a savior, pounced to hug my brother, wailing, Leo. Your sister is gone. Your sister is gone. My brother was stunned. A 10-year-old child, concept of death still fuzzy. But he seemed to sense the wrong atmosphere. Sister? My brother blinked. Wasn't sister holding me up in the water? This sentence made the originally noisy living room suddenly fall into dead silence. All eyes, including the police taking notes, the collapsed parents, the angry uncle, all focused on this 10-year-old child. Uncle took a deep breath, squatted down, softening his tone as much as possible. Leo, what did you say? Sister held you up? My brother nodded, face innocent, yes. That day I slipped, fell in and swallowed several mouthfuls of water, scared me to death. Then sister jumped down. She was below propping my feet, pushing me up. She said, Leo, don't be afraid, grab the edge. Then Dad came, with that long stick hitting sister. Sister sank down. My brother tilted his head, looking puzzled at Dad. Dad, why did you hit sister then? Sister was saving me. Boom. This innocent child's words, like a nuclear bomb, exploded in Dad and Mom's minds. Truth revealed. No jealousy. No pushing. No attempted murder. From start to end, only a sister who couldn't swim, exerting all strength to save her brother. And his father, treating her as the culprit, breaking her hand, removing her lifeline, personally sending her to hell. Ah! Dad suddenly let out a shrill scream, a sound not humanly possible, full of regret, pain, and madness. He madly rushed to the corner, grabbed that net pole. I killed Leah. I killed Leah. He knelt on the ground, using that pole to smash his own head and body viciously. Once, twice, 3 times. Head bleeding, he felt no pain. Husband. Don't do this. Don't. Mom pounced to hug him, the two rolling together, cries shaking the heavens. Police rushed up, seized the stick, restrained the mad dad. I floated on the ceiling, watching this scene. Surprisingly no sense of revenge satisfaction in my heart. Only felt desolate. The funeral was simple. Because it was an unnatural death, and underage, custom forbade a grand one. My ashes were hastily buried in the West Suburb Cemetery. But that home was utterly destroyed. Dad didn't improve because of my burial. He quit his job, rapidly emaciated, eyes sunken, like a walking corpse. Most of his days, he sat by the backyard pool. That pool's water had been drained, exposing the dry ugly bottom. But he wouldn't let anyone fill it or approach. He just sat there, tightly clutching that net pole broken in 2. It was the murder weapon, also his only memento. Leah, is the water cold? Dad got the ladder for you, come up quick. Dad was wrong, Dad won't hit you, don't hide below. He muttered to the empty pool bottom, sometimes gentle, sometimes furious, sometimes weeping bitterly. Psychiatrists came a few times, shook heads, and left. Said severe PTSD, plus extreme self-blame leading to schizophrenia. He trapped himself in that night. Trapped in the night he personally killed his daughter. And Mom became even weirder. She developed severe OCD and aquaphobia. She always felt a lingering water-fishy smell in the house. It was the smell of corpse rotting, of death. She wiped every corner of the house shiny, floors even reflecting figures. But she couldn't stand water. Even a little flow from the faucet would make her scream and dodge, like seeing a monster. Water. There's water. Wipe it dry quick. Wipe dry. Whenever she saw a spot of water on the floor, even a drop of milk spilled by my brother, she would immediately kneel, rag in hand, frantically wiping. While wiping, muttering, "Wipe dry and it's fine. As long as no water, Liao won't drown. Liao fears water, I need to dry all water, then she'll dare come home." Her hands, from long contact with high-concentration disinfectant, skin ulcerated, red and swollen terribly, but she felt no pain. She lived in a delusional world without water, trying this way to redeem the irredeemable daughter. As for that brother doted on by all. In this oppressive, mad, full of screams and cries home, he became increasingly silent. He dared not look at that dry pool, nor at his parents' twisted faces. He often hid alone in corners, hugging that bear I once bought him, which he despised as cheap, secretly crying, "Sister, come back. I'm scared." I watched all this. Watching this once cold, biased, suffocating home, now turned into true hell on earth. They lived, yet more painful than death. Every minute, every second, suffering conscience's slow torture. Enough. Really enough. The resentment in my heart dissipated bit by bit upon seeing Dad's full white hair, Mom's ulcerated hands. I no longer hated. Nor loved. I just didn't want to watch anymore. This home had no place for me. Whether in life or death. I floated out of the villa. The outside sunlight was so good. Not as cold as underwater, nor as oppressive as that home. In the distance, a warm soft light waited for me. There, no scolding, no bias, no cold pool water. I turned back for a last look at that luxurious villa. Goodbye, Dad. Goodbye, Mom. Hope in the next life, we don't meet again. I turned around, without any attachment, floating toward that light. Wind blew, carrying away the last sigh. Completely leaving this deep blue cage.